Hi, my name is Kimberly Gonzalez, and for this project, I focused on understanding how different developmental stages perceive romantic relationships. Specifically, I looked at early childhood and middle childhood. The goal of this project is to explore what children think love and relationships are, what influences those ideas, and how their understanding compares to what research shows about development. For the early childhood stage, I interviewed a 4-year-old boy. When I asked him what it means when two people love each other, he explained it in a very simple way. He said that people who love each other go on dates and spend time together.
Significa cuando dos personas se quieren mucho.
Significa que se aman y después se hacen una cita.
This shows that at this age, children see relationships as something positive and enjoyable. When I asked him why people get married, he said that people get married because they have a baby.
¿Y por qué crees que las personas se casan?
Porque si se cansan es cuando tienen un bebé.
This response was interesting because it shows that he connects marriage directly with having children, rather than understanding emotional commitment or long-term partnership. He also described what people in relationships do together. He mentioned things like cooking, going out, and even taking their kids to places like McDonald's.
¿Qué hacen juntos dos personas que se quieren? A ver. Como mamá y papá. ¿Qué hacen? Cocinan, salen, ¿qué hacen?
Y también te llevan a McDonald's. Pero mi papá me dan comer eso la vez primero y después luego me compra McDonald's.
These examples clearly reflect what he observes in his own family environment. When I asked if love is like fairy tales, such as princess stories, he said no. He described love in his own way, focusing on things like celebrations and spending time together.
El amor es como en las historias de princesas, como Blancanieves, como La Bella y la Bestia. ¿Tú crees que el amor es así?
No.
¿Y cómo es?
Pues con un cupcake.
¿Con un cupcake?
Sí.
¿Cómo así?
Pero sí, tiene que tener un pastel gigante y no se lo comen.
Ah, en los cuentos tienen un pastel gigante y no se los comen.
No.
Ah, ¿y cómo tú crees que es el amor entonces? A ver, dime unos muñequitos que tú veas que tenga el concepto que tú tengas del amor, a ver.
Entonces, pero yo no vi ninguno que sea así.
¿Tú no ves ninguno que sea así?
No, a mí nunca me sale en mi televisor.
¿Y qué hacen las personas para ser felices cuando viven juntos?
Se bañan, comen saludable.
¿Se abrazan?
Sí, se abrazan.
Ah.
Pero mi papá solo son flippers.
¿Tu papá?
This suggests that even though children are exposed to fantasy, their understanding is often more influenced by real-life experiences. Overall, his answers show that children in early childhood view love as something simple, positive, and something like everyday activities. Their understanding is mainly shaped by what they see at home and in their environment. For the middle childhood stage, I interviewed an 8-year-old girl. Compared to the younger child, her understanding of love and relationships was more realistic, you could say. When I asked her what it means when two people love each other, she explained that it means having a strong bond. She gave an example of her parents saying that they stay strong together and do not fight often.
What do you think it means when two people love each other?
That they have a strong bond together.
They have a strong bond?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example?
Like when my mom and dad are together, they don't fight and stuff. They're not
Like they're strong together, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
This shows that she understands emotional connection and stability in relationships. She also described what couples do together. such as holding hands, going out to eat, and spending time together. Her answers were more detailed and based on real life behaviors rather than simple or basic ideas. When discussing what makes people happy in relationships, she mentioned giving gifts, celebrating birthdays, and being kind to each other. She also emphasized that in order for relationships to last, people should not be rude or disrespectful.
Okay. What do you think a boyfriend and a girlfriend or a married couple is?
When they're together and they like kiss sometimes, but that's usually like when they're married.
When they're married?
Yeah.
Okay. What kind of things do people who love each other, what do they usually do when they're together?
Hold hands.
Hold hands?
And like they hold hands and like do stuff.
Like what?
Like they do like fun like stuff together.
Like go out to eat and stuff? Okay. What do you think makes people happy when they're in a relationship?
Boy buys them flowers, girl like gifts, like on a birthday or something.
So like the details? Nice. And what do you think people need to say?
This reflects an understanding of respect and communication. Another important point that she gave was that people learn about relationships from school and friends. She even gave an example of classmates acting like a couple.
And where do you think people learn about love or relationships? Do you think it's from movies, TV,
I think
family?
it's from, I don't want to be kind of weird, but including me, from school.
From school? Do you think they
Yeah.
learn about love in school?
Because I have a friend that they're like, I have a friend that they're like a love, they're like the mini version of a real couple. And that was yesterday. I almost fainted.
You almost fainted? Well, they were holding hands?
Yeah. His name is Taylor, and the girl's name was Isabella. And Taylor, I thought that they were gonna give her a high five, but then Isabella understood what they meant, and then they holding hands, and that's the part that I was like about to faint.
Showing that peer influence plays a big role in shaping her ideas. Overall, her responses show that children in middle childhood have a more realistic and detailed understanding of love. They begin to focus more on emotional connection, respect, and shared experiences. Research in developmental psychology supports the idea that children's understanding of relationship changes as they grow. Young children are strongly influenced by what they observe in their environment, especially family and everyday interactions, like you could see from the interviews that I did. According to Collins, early ideas about relationship begin to form close relationships and observations, which helps explain why the younger child focuses on activities like going out, spending time together, and family routines. In addition, children's understanding of relationship becomes more complex as they grow older. Collins explains that as children develop, they begin to understand emotional bonding and relationship dynamics more clearly. This reflects in the 8-year-old's response when she described that love was a strong bond and emphasized respect and kindness. Peer influence also becomes more important during middle childhood. According to Brown, children begin to learn about relationships through their interactions with peers and social environments. This directly connects to the participant's example of classmates acting like a couple and learning about relationships in school. In addition to that, Furman and Schaffer explained that as children grow, their understanding of relationship becomes more focused on emotional closeness, communication, and shared experiences. This matches the older child's responses about spending time together, being respectful, and maintaining a healthy relationship. When comparing both participants, there's a clear developmental difference. The younger child focuses on simple and concrete ideas, while the older child demonstrated a deeper and more realistic understanding of their relationships. These differences strongly align with what research shows about cognitive and social development. So, overall, this project showed that children's understanding of love and relationship evolves as they grow older. In early childhood, children tend to see love in a simple and basic way, often based on what they observe in their families. In contrast, children in middle childhood begin to understand more complex ideas such as emotional connection, respect, and communication. These findings are consistent with developmental research, which shows that as children mature, their thinking becomes more advanced and influenced by a wider range of social experiences.
For adolescents, I interviewed a 15-year-old about his views on relationships. Overall, his responses showed that even at a young age, people already have an idea of what a good relationship should look like, based on how they think relationships should be and what they have seen from others. When I asked him what a good relationship looks like, he said it's when two people genuinely love and appreciate each other for who they are, and that it should not be based on temporary desire.
When both people really love each other, and it's not based on any temporary desire toward each other.
Research shows that adolescents begin to develop ideas about emotional connection and personal values in relationships. This means that at this stage, individuals do start to recognize that relationships involve more than just attraction and begin to focus on deeper qualities such as personality and emotional connection. When I asked what love feels like, he described it as actually liking someone for their personality and appreciating them as a person, not based on appearance.
I think love is actually liking and appreciating someone for who they are, not based on anything like their looks or appearances.
Research supports this by showing that adolescents begin to include emotional connection as part of how they understand relationships. This reflects a shift from focusing only on physical attraction to recognizing the importance of who a person is on a deeper level. When I asked if people his age take relationships seriously or just for fun, he said it's a mix, explaining that some people take relationships seriously while others switch partners frequently.
I think people my age are a mix of both, depending on who you ask. Some people take relationships seriously, but still, switch people that they're interested in pretty frequently, which is kind of interesting.
Research shows that adolescent relationships are often exploratory and can be less stable. This is because individuals at this stage are still learning what they want in a partner and are gaining experience through different relationships. When I asked what he expects from a girlfriend, he said respect, appreciation, and mutual feelings. Research shows that adolescents begin to value respect and emotional connection in relationships. These qualities are important because they contribute to how individuals define a healthy relationship should look like. When I asked where his ideas about relationships come from, he mentioned friends, social media, movies, and shows. He also explained that these sources influence how people think relationships should look like.
My ideas about relationships come from experiencing relationships that my friends have been in, and also on social media, in shows and movies and stuff.
Research supports this by showing that adolescents are influenced by peers and media when forming relationship expectations. These influences can shape how individuals think relationships should look like, even if those ideas are not always realistic. He said that relationships in movies seem perfect, but that are very different from real life because they only show the positive parts.
I think movies or shows that are centered around romance give people a lot of ideas about how relationships should be, and that it should just be perfect, I guess you could say.
Research shows that adolescents can develop idealized views of relationships based on media portrayals. This can lead to expectations that focus more on positive aspects while ignoring the challenges that exist in real relationships. When I asked if relationships should be easy or require effort, he said it depends on how well two people click, and that some relationships are harder than others. Research shows that adolescents are still learning about effort and communication in relationships. This means that their understanding of what makes a relationship work may vary depending on their experiences. When I asked what makes a relationship happy and what makes it last, he focused on appreciation, respect, and real feelings between both people.
If both people appreciate each other and don't just like each other for like material things.
Research shows that these are important factors in relationship satisfaction. These elements contribute to how individuals define both happiness and stability in relationships. Lastly, when I asked if his ideas about relationships would change as he gets older, he said they probably will, especially if he gains more experience. Research shows that relationships' expectations can change as individuals gain experience. This reflects how perspectives on relationships are influenced by personal experiences over time. Overall, his responses show that adolescents already have clear ideas about relationships, especially regarding respect, appreciation, and emotional connection, while also being influenced by friends, media, and personal observations. Research supports that adolescent relationships are shaped by these same factors, and that these early ideas play an important role in how individuals understand relationships.
Hi everyone, my name is Juliana, and the purpose of this project is to see how different ages and life experiences can shape people's expectations of love and relationships. I especially focused on two life stages. I interviewed one participant who was 20 years old and the other one who's 66 years old. After that, I'm going to compare them to peer-reviewed research on communication, commitment, satisfaction, and what helps a relationship to last over time according to them. I asked both participants questions about what a healthy relationship looks like and what makes a relationship successful, what causes them to fail, and whether younger and older generations see relationships differently. My first participant was Anjali, who's 20 years old and she considers herself a young adult. When I asked her what comes to her mind when hearing the words romantic relationship, she described it as two people who date each other. When I asked her what a healthy relationship looks like for her, she said it should include trust, respect, boundaries, love, and also the balance between spending time together while still having personal space and independence.
I think in order to have a healthy relationship, there should be trust, respect, boundaries, and like love for each other. And I also think that it's important to spend time together, but also have like their own separate time so they can like share with their friends and just kind of like have their personal life. But like,
I thought her answer is interesting because it reflects how many young adults today want closeness, but also they want their independence. According to Weleka Madja 2026 study on romantic relationships across generations X, Y, and Z, younger generations usually value emotional connection, communication, and personal growth in relationships. Younger adults want intimacy, but they also want room to grow as individuals. Anjali also explained that relationships should be both love and teamwork. She said relationships may begin with attraction and feelings, but when it becomes serious, they need effort and teamwork, and both people need to build a future together and plan for it. That response connects with research showing that successful relationships need both emotional connection and teamwork. Love may start a relationship, but teamwork helps to maintain it. When I asked about roles in the relationship, she said that every relationship is different considering LGBTQ relationships. But in her case, as a straight person, she still believes in somehow traditional roles, where the man is more of a provider, while, however, both people contribute overall.
each relationship is different, so I think like if there's gonna be roles, that's gonna like depend on like the people who are in the relationship. Also like there's like different type of relationships. Like I think it's like easier if we're talking about like a guy and a girl, but like there's like two guys, two girls, and like there's even like three people in a relationship. So again, like that depends on like what they want and what they're expecting out of that relationship. But for me personally, since I'm like straight, I think like if it's a girl and a guy, the guy should have like this role of like a provider. I don't think it should be like him like putting like 100% effort and then like the girl not putting any effort. But I think it definitely should be like more him, like maybe like a 60-40 or like a 70-30.
I found I found her response in I found her response interesting because it shows how younger people can mix modern and traditional beliefs at the same time. She mentioned I found her response interesting because it shows how younger generations can still mix modern beliefs and traditional beliefs into relationships. I asked her what she thought influenced her opinions in relationships, and she said that her perspective and roles come from her family, her parents, and her Latin culture. Even though values are changing, cultural influences and family examples still matter to generations. Then I asked her whether social media changes how people view relationships. She said yes. She explained that influencer movies and online content create expectations about relationships should look like. Research supports this. Maramella found that media and social influences can shape young adults' beliefs and expectations about relationships, including unrealistic standards. Young adults may compare real relationships to idealized versions of what they see online. Overall, Angeli's interview reflects a younger generation perspective that values love, freedom, balance, and identity, while also understanding that healthy relationships will require effort.
For middle adulthood, I interviewed someone about their views on relationships at this stage of life. Overall, his responses showed that relationships at this stage are based more on understanding, support, and communication rather than just feelings. When I asked him what a good relationship looks like, he said it is about understanding each other, supporting each other, and being able to connect as a couple. Research shows that in the middle adulthood, relationships are often defined by stability, emotional support, and mutual understanding. This reflects how individuals at this stage focus more on maintaining a strong and stable connection with their partner. When I asked what love means to him at this stage in life, he said love is centered around family, especially children, and building a family together.
Amor a la familia, pero sobre todo a los niños, a los hijos que vamos teniendo en la conformación de la...
Research supports this by showing that in adulthood, love often becomes more focused on long-term commitments and family roles. This shows how relationships at this stage extend beyond just a couple and include family responsibilities. When I asked what he expects from a partner, he said understanding, love, affection, and especially emotional support.
Comprensión, amor, cariño, apoyo, mayormente emocional, porque es una pareja.
Research shows that emotional support and trust are key components of relationship satisfaction in long-term relationships. These qualities are important because they help maintain stability and connection over time. When I asked whether relationships are more about love or partnership, he said they are both, explaining that there must be love, but also a strong partnership for the relationship to work.
Tienes que ser un partner y tienes que ser también, tiene que haber amor, obviamente, porque si no, no fluye la relación como debe fluir.
Research supports this by showing that successful relationships require both emotional connection and practical partnership, including shared responsibilities and teamwork. This reflects how relationships in adulthood involve both emotional and practical aspects. When I asked what influenced his views of relationships growing up, he said movies, conversation with people, and real-life interactions influenced how he imagined relationships would be. Research shows that early influences such as media and social interactions play a role in shaping relationship expectations. These early ideas can continue to influence how individuals view relationships later in life. When I asked if younger people see relationships differently today, he said yes, explaining that communication has changed and that younger people rely more on texting rather than talking in person. He described how people now send messages instead of having face-to-face conversations.
La comunicación afecta mucho en el día de hoy porque no se comunican como nos comunicábamos nosotros antes, ¿no? Antes no había teléfono, no había... Sí, había con una computadora que otra, pero no había para mandar mensajes. Y aquí los he visto que se van a las fiestas y se ponen a mandarse mensajes de un lado al otro ahí. Dice, ¿por qué no conversan? Entonces eso sí, la comunicación es muy importante y al día de hoy no se comunican verbalmente, todo es por mensaje.
Research shows that changes in technology have affected how people communicate in relationships, with digital communication becoming more common. This shift can change how people interact and build connections. When I asked how social media has changed relationships, he said that social media can create unrealistic expectations by showing only happy moments and not real life problems. He explained that people often compare their relationships to what they see online, even though those images are not always real. Research supports this by showing that social media often presents idealized versions of relationships, which can influence how individuals perceive their own relationships. This can lead to comparison and unrealistic expectations. When I asked if relationships are easy or take work, he said they take a lot of work and require understanding, flexibility, and communication.
Toma trabajo.
Bastante.
Bastante. Porque como te dije al principio, si no hay comprensión, si no hay un apoyo, tú tienes que, a la vez que tú entiendes de que esa es la persona con la que tú, no a tu edad, a la mía, que es la persona con la que tú vas a estar el resto de tu vida o la que tú decides que va a ser tu pareja por el resto de tu vida, tú tienes que ser más flexible porque tú tienes que comprender cómo eres tú y cómo es tu pareja, y si tú quieres a tu pareja como es, no tratar de cambiarla.
Research shows that long-term relationships require effort, communication, and the ability to manage challenges. These factors are important for maintaining stability over time. When I asked what makes a relationship happy and what makes it last, he focused on understanding, support, communication, and being able to work through problems together. He also mentioned the importance of staying positive and not expecting perfection. Research shows that communication, emotional support, and conflict management are key factors in relationship satisfaction and longevity.
Obligatoriamente, como mismo te dije, la comprensión, el ser felices con lo que tenemos, el ser, el ir hacia adelante de la relación a pesar de que hayan obstáculos.
These elements help couples maintain strong and lasting relationships. Lastly, when I asked how his views on relationships have changed over time, he explained that when he was younger, communication required more effort, such as visiting someone in person and talking face to face. He compared this to how younger people communicate now, saying that much of their interaction happens through texting and digital communication. He also said that relationships become more complex in adulthood due to responsibilities like living together and having a family. Research supports this by showing that while the core elements of relationships remain the same, the way people communicate and experience relationships has changed due to technology and life responsibilities. Overall, his responses show that relationships in middle adulthood are focused on communication, emotional support, and long-term stability, while also recognizing changes in how younger generations interact due to technology. Research supports that these factors are essential for maintaining successful and lasting relationships.
My second participant was Gloria. She is 66 years old and she is in a late adulthood stage. When I asked her what comes to her mind when hearing the words romantic relationship, she describes it as a couple who loves each other and maintains a loving bond.
Pues una pareja que se quiere, que se ama y que sostienen un vínculo amoroso.
When I asked her what a healthy relationship looks like for her, she focused on trust, dialogue, understanding, respect, and love. Compared to the younger participant, Gloria had much more emphasis on communication, emotional maturity, and her answers in general showed much more life experience maturity. This aligns with the research by Carnegie and Gap, a long-term relationship in later adulthood. Their study found that successful long-term relationships are strongly connected to communication, companionship, laughter, appreciation, and emotional support. When I asked Gloria what makes a relationship successful, she said dialogue, love, respect, and sharing positive experiences together. She explained that couples need good memories and strong foundations so that when problems happen, the relationship can survive difficult moments. I thought her answer is meaningful because it shows that relationships are not only built during easy times, but they're also supposed to be strengthened when challenges happen. When I asked what causes relationships to fail, Gloria said relationships fail when both people close themselves off and refuse to talk respectfully things out.
Pues yo pienso que es cuando los dos se cierran a poder sentarse a conversar del conflicto de forma respetuosa.
That answer reflects emotional maturity and something many relationships experts also highlight. Avoiding communication usually makes problems worse. When I asked what advice she would give to younger people, she said to love deeply, respect each other, laugh often, share beautiful moments, and enjoy being together. I thought her advice is obvious but is meaningful, and many relationships struggle with it. It reflects how older adults see more value on peace, gratitude, companionship, and enjoying time together rather than only focusing on excitement and in the moment. When comparing both generations in their interviews, I noticed differences. The young adult participant focused more on individuality, flexibility, and influence of social media. She saw relationships as something that should add happiness to life while also still allowing both people to remain one person themselves. The late adulthood participant focused more on communication, respect, resilience, and building something that will last over time. She viewed relationship more as a partnership that needs daily care and mutual understanding. However, despite those differences, both participants agreed on several important values. Both believed that love matters, both believed that relationships required effort equally, both emphasized respect, and both believed that healthy relationships needs teamwork from both people. What I learned the most about this project is that even though generations may describe relationships differently, the foundation of a healthy love remains similar. They'll still describe the same values as similar. In conclusion, this project showed me that age and experience can influence how people understand romance, but the basic emotional needs in a relationship remains the same. Younger adults may focus more on growth and independence since they're still growing, while older adults may focus more on stability and communication since they seek for a partner to stay for the rest of their life. But in the end, both generations still seek connection, love, trust, and support. Thank you.